Emily Hughes thought she had found love the night she started talking to Marcus Reed. But what began as late-night whispers turned into a nightmare that would end with her body wrapped in a blanket by a cold lake, and Marcus disappearing into the shadows with her trust, her future, and her life. Emily Hughes was just 19 when her life began to quietly drift into shadows no one around her could see. She lived in a plain, gray house on the edge of a suburban street, where dogs barked in the evenings, and porch lights flickered as neighbors came home tired from work. Her mother worked nights at a factory, leaving Emily alone most evenings with only the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional passing car for company. She filled the silence with music and scrolling through social media, searching for something that would make her feel less alone. That was when she found him, a man who appeared like a savior in her lonely world, messaging her at midnight with words that made her feel seen and wanted in a way no one else ever had. He sent her small gifts, a necklace with the cheap silver heart, a book she mentioned liking, and told her that her smile was the only light he looked forward to each day. She began to wait for his messages more than she waited for the sunrise, and slowly, her world began to shape around his words and promises. At first, Emily's friends found it sweet when she told them she was talking to someone online, but soon, they noticed how she started to withdraw, skipping plans to stay home and wait for his calls, staying up until dawn with tired eyes, but a soft smile on her lips. She began deleting her messages as soon as she read them, hiding her phone screen when others glanced her way, and spending long minutes standing in the small yard behind her house, whispering into the phone under the pale glow of the porch light. She told herself it was love, that it was special, that he understood her better than anyone else, and that was why she needed to keep it just between them. The man, who said he was 24 and living in another state, spoke to her about a future together, telling her about small houses by quiet lakes and how they would watch the sunrise together with coffee in hand. Away from a world that didn't understand them, Emily's social media began to change, filling with vague captions about freedom and living for herself, about letting go of what held her back. Friends noticed but didn't understand the depth of what was happening. She started selling her old clothes online, telling her mother she wanted to save for college, but the money never stayed in her account for long. She sent it to him whenever he needed help with rent or food, believing every word he told her about how hard he was trying for their future. Neighbors noticed a dark sedan parked on the street late at night, headlights off, engine running quietly in the dark, while Emily's bedroom light stayed on, a pale glow in the quiet street. No one thought much of it, just another car in a neighborhood where nothing ever happened. But inside Emily's mind, the world was shifting, her thoughts turning into plans, the hope for freedom wrapping itself around her like a promise she could almost touch. She started keeping a small suitcase hidden under her bed, with clothes neatly folded, a toothbrush, and a photo of the man she loved, tucked safely in the front pocket. She wrote in her journal about the day she would leave, scribbling hearts and small dreams of a new life where no one would tell her what to do or how to live. She ignored the small warnings inside her when he started telling her she was the only person he could trust, that she should never tell anyone about him, that no one would understand. Emily's world had become a tunnel with one light at the end, and she was ready to follow it, believing with every beat of her heart that love was waiting for her on the other side. Emily's mother returned home one gray morning, the factory dust still clinging to her uniform, expecting to find Emily curled on the couch with her phone in hand or asleep in her small room where posters of fading bands still hung on the walls. Instead, she found silence so heavy it pressed against her chest. Emily's bed was made, her favorite blanket folded at the foot, but the window was open, curtains fluttering in the breeze, and the air smelled like the night had stolen something from the room. The small suitcase Emily kept hidden under the bed was gone, and so was Emily. Her phone was turned off, and her shoes were missing from beside the door. A chill moved through the house as her mother stood there, calling Emily's name into the quiet, hearing her own voice echo back without an answer. When the police arrived, they moved through the house carefully, taking photos of the neat room, the empty window frame, and the single hair tie on the floor near the bed. At first, they told Emily's mother that teenagers sometimes ran away, that she might come back in a day or two, that maybe she just needed space. But the fear in Emily's mother's eyes did not ease, and she clutched Emily's pillow to her chest, unable to believe her daughter would leave without a word. The officers found no signs of forced entry, no struggle, just the open window and the empty room. But as they dug deeper, they discovered a trail Emily had tried to hide, a quiet unraveling of her plans through the digital footprints she left behind. Emily had drained her small savings account over the last few months, sending money to someone in another state, often in small amounts to avoid suspicion. She had used her mother's credit card to buy bus tickets under a fake name, deleting the confirmation emails as soon as they came, but the transactions remained in the bank statements, quiet evidence of her secret. She had searched for cheap motels, routes to small towns far from home, and even how to change her name without getting caught. Her browser history painted a picture of a girl who wanted to disappear and believed she had found a way out. A neighbor's security camera revealed the dark sedan parked on the street on the night Emily disappeared, the car door opening in the shadows, a figure stepping out and waiting near the curb. Another blurry figure, small and quick, ran from the side of the house, carrying a bag and glancing over her shoulder before slipping into the car. The timestamp on the video showed it was just after midnight, a time when the street was empty and the world was asleep, leaving Emily to step into a new life under the cover of darkness. The police classified the case as a voluntary disappearance, stating there was no immediate evidence of abduction. But Emily's mother could not sleep, haunted by dreams of Emily calling her name, reaching out for help, lost somewhere she could not find. She kept checking Emily's room, hoping to see her daughter's tired smile, to hear the soft sound of her laughter filling the empty spaces again. But the room remained silent, the air heavy with the fear that the girl who had once filled the home with warmth was now walking into a darkness she could not escape, guided by promises that may never have been true. 2 weeks after Emily disappeared, her body was discovered near a quiet lake on the outskirts of town, where the water was still and dark under the heavy trees. A fisherman found her early in the morning, the mist hanging low over the water. As he noticed what looked like a bundle of blankets caught on the muddy shore. When he stepped closer, he saw pale skin and tangled hair, and he dropped his fishing rod, stumbling back with a shout that broke the morning silence. Emily's body was wrapped in a thin blanket, her hair damp and clinging to her face, with bruises running along her arms like dark fingerprints. A deep cut marked her neck, a single wound that ended her life and silenced the hope she had carried when she left her home. The police arrived and sealed off the area, yellow tape cutting through the trees, while officers moved carefully around the shore, collecting every small piece of evidence they could find. Her clothes were different from what she wore when she left home, suggesting someone else had given them to her or made her change. Her shoes were missing, and her feet were dirty and cut, showing she had walked barefoot through the woods at some point before her death. The medical examiner's report later revealed that Emily had been alive for days after she vanished, showing signs of dehydration and malnourishment, with ligature marks around her wrists that indicated she had been tied up for an unknown period. Near the lake, investigators found a small abandoned cabin hidden behind a row of thick trees, with broken windows and a door hanging loosely on its hinges. Inside, they discovered old food containers, a thin mattress on the floor, and a burned-out fireplace filled with ashes. There were cigarette butts scattered around, and a single hairbrush with strands of blonde hair stuck in its bristles. On the floor near the mattress, they found Emily's necklace with her name engraved on the small pendant, half buried in the dirt as if it had fallen off during a struggle. The cabin smelled of mildew and smoke, and the air felt heavy with the memory of fear that had once filled the space. Further searches around the area uncovered Emily's phone, cracked and water-damaged, hidden beneath a pile of leaves not far from the cabin. Technicians tried to recover the data, and fragments of messages began to appear. Pieces of conversations between Emily and the man she thought she loved. Conversations that started with promises of forever and shifted into threats and demands for silence. The last messages sent from Emily's phone were never answered, a string of words pleading for help that disappeared into the cold night air, leaving behind only questions about the final hours she spent near the lake. News of Emily's death spread through the town quickly, transforming her disappearance from a quiet mystery into a dark tragedy. Her mother collapsed when the police arrived at her door, clutching Emily's photo to her chest, her cries echoing through the small house that felt emptier than ever. People who once thought Emily had run away for freedom now whispered about the darkness that had taken her, about the cruelty that could steal a young girl's life and leave her alone near a cold lake under the early morning mist. The lake, once a place where families came to fish and children played along the edges, became a place of sorrow, holding the last moments of a young girl who only wanted to be loved and found herself caught in a nightmare she could not escape. The investigation into Emily's death shifted quickly once the autopsy revealed the timeline of her last days. The police turned their attention to the mysterious man she had been sending money to, tracing fragments of conversations and payment records that led them to an identity carefully layered with lies. The man Emily believed she loved was using the name Tyler Reed, presenting himself as a young mechanic trying to save enough to start a new life with her. In reality, he was Marcus Reed, a 32-year-old man with a long record of fraud and manipulation, moving from state to state under different names, leaving behind a trail of women whose lives he had shattered. Marcus had built a careful image of himself for Emily, using fake photos and stolen stories to build trust. He told her about a difficult childhood, about working long hours to survive, about his dreams of escaping his past. His words were crafted to pull at her loneliness, to feed her the illusion that she was the only one who understood him, the only one who could save him. Emily, desperate for someone to see her, believed him, letting his stories become the foundation of her dreams. She sent him money, hid their relationship from her family, and prepared to leave everything behind. Convinced she was choosing love.as, the police traced Marcus's movements. They discovered he had done this before. There were reports from other towns of young women who had drained their savings, sent him money, and prepared to leave their homes for him. In most cases, Marcus took what he wanted and disappeared, leaving behind broken hearts and empty bank accounts. But with Emily, something had changed. Witnesses came forward stating they had seen a man matching Marcus's description arguing with a young blonde girl near the lake, their voices sharp before they disappeared into the trees. An old woman walking her dog reported seeing Emily with him near the cabin days before her body was found, looking pale and frightened, her arms crossed tightly around her body as she followed him back toward the shadows of the trees. Fingerprints found inside the abandoned cabin matched Marcus, along with strands of his hair on the old mattress where Emily had likely spent her last nights. They found evidence of meals for two, disposable cups, and a single toothbrush, proving Emily had been there, living in fear while Marcus kept her hidden. Her phone records showed she had tried to call for help, but the calls never connected. the signal to weak in the dense woods, leaving her trapped in the cabin with the man she once trusted. The police issued a warrant for Marcus Reed, sharing his photo with the media and labeling him a suspect in Emily's murder. They warned the public that he was dangerous and manipulative, capable of using charm to get what he wanted before turning violent if he was threatened. But Marcus had already vanished, abandoning the sedan near a bus station in another city, leaving no trace of where he was heading next. The trail ended there, with Marcus slipping back into the world under a new name, leaving the community terrified that he could appear in any town, ready to find another girl to manipulate, another life to destroy. Emily's death became more than a local tragedy. It became a chilling symbol of how quickly a promise of love could turn into a story of horror. Her funeral was held on a cloudy morning, the sky hanging heavy over the small cemetery as people gathered to say goodbye. The service was quiet except for the sounds of her mother's quiet sobs and the rustle of wind through the trees. Her mother clutched a framed photo of Emily, the one where she was laughing, her hair caught in the breeze, unaware of the darkness that would someday find her. The pastor spoke of light and hope, but everyone there could feel the weight of what had been lost, a young life, taken far too soon because of a trust placed in the wrong hands. After the funeral, Emily's room remained untouched, the bed still made with the soft blanket she loved, her perfume bottle sitting on the dresser, and her favorite books lined neatly on the shelf. Her mother often sat in the room late at night, the silence pressing around her, clutching Emily's pillow and closing her eyes, trying to remember the sound of her daughter's laughter, the small moments of happiness before everything changed. Each time the phone rang, a part of her hoped it would be Emily's voice, somehow calling to say she was safe, that it was all a mistake, but the line always remained empty. The investigation into Marcus Reed continued, but each lead led to dead ends. He was seen in different towns, using different names, working small jobs, and moving on before anyone could question him. The authorities issued warnings, showing his photo on the news. But Marcus had learned how to blend in, to become invisible, while searching for his next victim. The story of Emily's murder was shared on crime podcasts, YouTube documentaries, and news channels, becoming a warning to young girls about the dangers of online predators. Her face appeared in thumbnails with titles calling her death a tragedy, her story a lesson. But for her mother, it was a reality she woke up every day, a wound that would never truly heal. Emily's friends tried to honor her memory, organizing small vigils by the lake where she was found, lighting candles that reflected on the water's surface, the flames trembling in the evening breeze. They spoke of her kindness, her laughter, the way she always remembered to check on them when they were sad, unaware that Emily was the one who needed someone to check on her the most. They placed flowers near the cabin in the woods, a small marker for the place where she spent her final days, turning the ground into a quiet promise that she would not be forgotten. Despite the fear that Marcus was still out there, Emily's story inspired changes within the community. Schools and parents began to talk openly about online safety, warning teenagers about sharing personal information and the dangers of hidden intentions behind kind words. Her mother joined groups that helped families affected by similar crimes, sharing Emily's story so others could see the signs that she wished she had seen sooner. Emily's death became a reminder that sometimes the greatest danger hides behind the words we want to believe, and the love we think will save us can sometimes be the love that ends our lives, leaving behind a silence that can never be filled.